Hello and welcome to episode 2 of From the Vault, brought to you by Team Vault. With me I have Holt,
Hey.
Alex,
Hello.
and Nathaniel.
Why am I last?
I mean,
Hello.
I literally randomly determined. So, we're Murphy's Vault's team. It's an Edinburgh-based card shop. You can find us at murphysvault.com or Facebook, Twitter. What's our Twitter handle? It's Vault
Murphy.
Vault Murphy.
Also WordPress.
Also
Ooh.
WordPress.
Boom.
We have articles. Holt put up an article recently.
That's true.
That is true.
Check it out. It's also on .com. Anyway, if you're in Scotland, come check us out. We've got events on pretty much every day.
Yeah, there's always something happening at the Vault. Every time I go down there, even if it's just to pick up cards, there's some people playing Magic or something.
Like, even if we've not got events, there's people like Kitchen Table or known formats getting played. So the shop's mostly focused on Magic, but we've also got Final Fantasy, we've got board games, there's RPGs, there's a D&D night, and we recently trialed a new card game called Light Seekers.
Yeah, cool. The Light Seekers guys, the guys who actually make the game, came and they went around a bunch of Scottish stores and they demoed it. I don't know, I didn't get a chance to play it, but I saw some other people playing it. It looked really interesting. Looks quite different to Magic. Card advantage is a different kind of concept, and you get to choose whether you play a lot of things or draw a card on your turn, which is kind of an interesting thing I saw. But it definitely looks like potentially an interesting game, but I haven't really had a chance to check it out fully.
That sounds interesting. I will say when I try and look at other card games, I like card games that are further away from Magic, because I find like card games that are too similar, I'm just like, why aren't I just playing Magic?
Yeah, exactly.
Also, every time I've tried to get Holt to play a card game that's similar to Magic but not quite the same, he goes, "Is there a stack?" And I go, "No." And he goes, "Well, I don't want it."
Well, I mean, it's
the stack is great. The stack is great, but there's lots of games that don't have it and are also still good games.
Ooh. Kind of debatable.
I feel this is a separate podcast.
Well, anyway, the demo was great fun. Thanks very much to the guys for coming in and demoing it for everyone in the shop. That was really cool. And they had their own playmats and everything.
Yeah. They were just really good guys.
Yeah.
They had a really good attitude.
Absolutely. So this episode, back to Magic, is for Scottish Nationals. So unfortunately, of the four of us, only Alex Holt could make it to the tournament. So guys, do you want to tell us about the tournament in general? Like, what do you think? Venue, organization, how many people were there?
It's our first experience of nationals. My first experience.
Yeah, I've never been to a nationals.
It was so it was 114 people there.
Yeah, it was right around 114 was what it listed, but I think it was actually a little bit more than that with buys or something.
Yeah, effectively more. So it's 8 rounds, 5 rounds of standard, 3 rounds of draft. It's first mixed format tournament I've played.
Yeah, same here actually.
I quite enjoyed it. I think that's probably because I like drafting now. Other than that, it didn't feel super special. It felt reasonably similar to WMCQs that I played last year.
Just more people? Or?
Yeah, it was.
Well, I guess a few more people, but I mean, I remember the one that I top-8 last year was also 8 rounds. So.
And we did actually have 80 something people.
I don't think it was. Yeah, I think it was maybe 20 or something more people, but I didn't feel
cool.
Yeah, I've never been to a WMC before, because by the time I started playing Magic pretty seriously, I'd moved to Scotland, and obviously I'm American if you can't tell by my accent. So my DCI originally was US, and I just changed it this year actually, so I was really, really stoked to be able to play. And actually, one of the things that I liked, and some of you guys may have experienced this at WMCs and things like that, was the amount of players who were there that I just didn't know. Oh, yeah. I'd never seen before, and I was like, who are all these people?
Everyone comes out the woodwork for it in terms of old players, and also, we'll touch on that a bit more for Nats, because I think that was cool. But, people just come to it because it's, they see, World Cup or National Championship or something on it, and, they want to compete. But people have been waiting for Nationals for a long time. We've been clamoring for it. There were some people thought that, we wanted a 2-day event, really.
Yeah. Well, it's been a big thing just across. If you just pay attention to Twitter, the Twitter sphere has it was a big thing basically that lots of the smaller countries only got a 1-day event, which it's better than not having nationals. Many would argue, but it doesn't really feel like nationals to most. This is the argument that's been presented to me. Is it doesn't really feel like nationals to most of the people who played nationals when it was a thing years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
I can understand that.
Yeah, I definitely sympathise with that point of view. As someone who never played in those nationals, it's hard for me to get really upset about not having this thing that I've never had. But I definitely a 2-day event sounds really cool because it's much closer to something like a GP, which is a lot more exciting as like a community event.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Whereas the one-day event, often what ends up happening is that in the later rounds, the only people who are still there are the people in contention for top 8, and then like as the later rounds start to fall off and off, people just start leaving because it's really late and you've been here since like 9 in the morning and you don't want to be here anymore. You want to go eat food and cry about losing at Magic.
Yeah, there's that like final of the PPTQ where it's like you, the other person, the judge that looks really tired, and the shop owner. Yeah, the person you drove there with, the shop owner that wants to close the shop. And that's it. That's it.
It's like 9 at night, and everyone just kind of wants to go home, but you have to continue playing Magic.
Yeah. Now imagine how much lonelier it feels in the big hall at the Glasgow City College.
Whereas, like if it's a 2-day event, I think that there is a much bigger community feel around like the top 8, for example, because it happens like midway through day 2, and then suddenly, hey, well, we'll go and get food like while they're preparing. Maybe we don't care that much about the quarterfinals, but then we'll come back and actually watch the semis because this is kind of exciting, and especially in Scotland. A place where I think that the WMC has a really big community spirit and involvement because we have always had a good record there. Our teams have always been solid, and we've always like done at least well. We've always like day 2, I think, right?
Yeah. And I think actually one of the nicest parts for me, once again, never been to WMC and was really excited for it. And actually, I felt like the attitude that a lot of players had on that day really delivered. It was a lot of camaraderie. It was a lot of people hanging out with people and having fun, even though there was something on the line. And then in the end, when we found out who won, with Duncan and Stephen. Yeah?
Duncan and Stephen Murray were our top 2.
Yeah,
with Stephen being the overall national champion.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone was pretty happy to hear about it. There was generally a pretty positive outlook, like, wow. Like,
I mean, so it definitely helps that a lot of people have said that this would be like, if we were like fantasy drafting our WMC team, this is probably the 3 people that we have are probably the people we'd have picked.
Yeah.
It definitely helps that is the case. Because it's much easier to be like really excited about a bunch of good players going to the WMC. But I do also think that like from what I've seen of other years, like people are generally really supportive of the team, and there's just this really big community spirit behind the team, which is really good because it means that you're excited to try and be part of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I mean nationals. I think the really interesting thing about them, although I mean I've never played nationals because I missed this one and I didn't start. I wasn't playing back when they were around. There's a huge difference between, say, like Scottish nationals compared to, I mean, the obvious example is US nationals, where I mean, the tournament's just a totally different thing, and I imagine that the atmosphere is entirely different, and it means something entirely like. I mean, winning US nationals would be a huge
insane,
deal, yeah,
because there's so many people. It's such a big stage, but that also dilutes it slightly.
Absolutely,
right? You don't know everyone who's winning US nationals, or at least maybe you do, but you know their name because they write for Channel Fireball.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's difficult for Wizards of the Coast because nationals wants to be a lot of different things for lots of different people, and finding the right balance of not being so big. Like if it's a two-day tournament, I think Scotland maybe could like manage that. We'd have enough people go that it might be viable for a tournament organizer to run it. Once you start getting below the number of people as we have, I imagine it's like very expensive to like rent a venue. In terms of that, the venue they had was pretty nice, and the tournament was well run. They had some issues with Wizards event reporter in the starting of the draft, but
I'm not sure that there's ever been a tournament
about
run
half
in
of the
Magic
course.
history that didn't have an issue with Wizards event reporter.
the judging staff, Snap, Dan, Aaron, all did like as good a job as they could with it, and overall it's pretty well run. Dakon as well, running the tournament,
I think all the people running the tournament did fantastic.
As far as they could, they kept the tournament like moving. Yeah, it was good.
Yep, I agree.
So, back to you guys' tournament. Let's do standard first. Holt, what did you play, and what do you think about it?
So in the end, I decided to play Reminisce Red, which I did not actually have a lot of experience with the deck. I actually wrote an article earlier this week. It's up on the Murphy's Vault website, on the WordPress site, about how I came to that, because before that I was playing with a mono white deck for a while, which was basically an Kettra's Monument deck. It was a little bit different from like blue-white Monument, where you make this big overwhelming board presence and then dust on and then swing in for the victory. It was more of a big mid-range deck that was focused on Thalia's Lancers. And after playing with that a lot, I had some pretty good success. I 5-0'd a league, was doing pretty well online, and then suddenly the online meta started changing a lot, whereas tons of ramp, tons of control, and all this stuff just went over the top of my white mid-range deck, So, I basically kind of thought about it, and it was kind of a tough decision because I only had a couple days to basically prepare when I made this choice. But I thought, well, if a lot of people are playing this, and knowing Scotland historically plays a lot of control and a lot of like what I would call nonsense decks, like all these big ramp decks. So I was like, okay, well, why don't we just play aggro? Like I can turn creatures sideways and I can burn face. So I picked it up. I had a 5-0 league with Ewan actually when I was like, oh, can I shadow you? And we just jammed that. And I thought the deck was like, it was just smooth enough. You know what I mean? Where like it was one of those decks you played and it was like, wow, this seems just like a really powerful thing to be doing.
I mean the deck's extremely powerful.
Exactly.
So
I mean, it's also just one of the strongest. Like I think it's one of the strongest aggressive decks we've seen in like a really long time.
Yeah, I the only thing like I thinking about standard decks where I've just like played the cards out as they've intended and felt like, wow, this is just incredibly powerful. The closest I can come, I think, with Ramen Up Red was like Mardu vehicles when it first started being a thing. When you were like crewing with, you know, like with Smuggler's Copter.
Yeah.
Where you're like, Smuggler's Copter, let's crew this with a veteran motorist. Oh my god, this is bonkers.
And people are like figuring out that you can play Unlicensed Disintegration in your aggro deck. So now you have like the best removal spell in the format that also lava spikes them.
Yeah.
And it's like the biggest mega Searing Blaze you've ever played. Yeah. Like Mardu Vehicles, I think, is actually slightly off topic, but it's like my pick for most powerful standard deck of like recent years.
Yeah, the copter version.
In terms of like lots of.
Bananas.
I actually was thinking of like the version that eventually became like Mardu Ballista.
Okay, yeah, like Heart of Kieran and that.
With a transformational package into Planeswalkers and Refs, that's like a really clever piece of deck building.
Especially because they had Heart of Kieran, whereas the other decks didn't. Whereas when Copter was around, everybody had Copter. Yeah.
Well, I mean, also like it's difficult to classify exactly because it went into a format which had like Aetherworks Marvel, which definitely is like close to like that's also a contender for like strongest standard deck of a really long time.
Yeah, or the Saheeli combo.
Yeah.
Oof.
But like, I think that this is like at least the strongest fair standard deck we've seen in like a really long time.
Yeah.
That wasn't a development mistake.
That wasn't a massive mistake.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a slight tangent. I'll get back to it.
Well, it's kind of interesting you say that because actually playing the red deck, I feel like the red deck is on par with that vehicles. If not, actually, it feels a bit stronger. Curving into Hazard just feels so good.
Hazard's just a messed up magic.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I went 4-1 in the standard portion. I had one bye at Nationals. The first round, I played against Energy and got into this really interesting game. Like, I was kind of a bit of a mess right before the tournament because I was just like, I still hadn't decided on my sideboard. I had no exact idea about my flex slots. So I was a bit, like, on edge, jumped into this match, and game one, I basically played it out where we got into a board stall where he had Bristling Hydra, and I had, Hazaret, and he had Whirler Virtuoso, and he had this, like, 9 energy. And he's basically put in this awkward position where he's like, okay, do I make a bunch of Thopters and try and race now? He's on 10 life. Or do I, like, leave this Bristling Hydra? If I use any energy, I can't block Hazaret. And so we, like, reached this board stall, and I just ended up sitting there and paying 3 mana for 5 turns. He just threw it at his face. And then the next game, I played with a piece of sideboard tech I wasn't really sure about. The only reason I actually ran it was because I didn't have an additional Chandra to play, so I ran Akum Firebird.
Oh man,
that card actually did so much work against Energy. I was incredibly impressed.
I saw it being played online pre-Pro Tour when the red decks were kind of a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I saw it in people's sideboards for like control.
Mm-hmm. And
it seemed fine.
It actually really impressed me. And one of the reasons why was things like Confiscation Coup. Because they take your coup, you kill your own bird, and then you reanimate it.
Yeah, it's like my Confiscation Coup isn't the be-all end-all against a Scarab card.
Yeah, exactly. So was really impressed with that. Round 2, I got absolutely stomped against Energy again. It was funny because I made my deck choice being like, okay, this white deck's really good against some of the more conventional strategies or the more mid-rangey strategies like Zombies, Energy, and it's pretty decent against red, but I think I'm going to play up against a lot of rampant control, so I brought red. I managed to play against Energy twice, and then Zombies, and then red. So, whatever. Anyway, second round, I got totally stomped by a turn 3 Aethersphere Harvester, both games. Game 1, he curved Aethersphere Harvester into a turn 4 Scarab God. That did not go well. I then played against Zombies, where 3 sideboard Sweltering Suns did a ton of work. And I was really, really iffy.
Just on a side there, how many actual zombie decks were there? Because, I mean, I think towards the end it was kind of on a little bit of a decline, I'd say. But
There was a lot of zombies actually.
Mhm.
I was actually walking into the room and like I was really glad I brought red because there was a lot of control, there was a lot of ramp, but actually one of the more commonly played decks, I think you'd agree with me, Alex, is that one of the more commonly played decks was zombies.
I didn't play against it myself, but Rory played it, I think, 3 rounds in a row.
I thought he played it all 4 rounds in a row.
No, he played some. I'm pretty sure he played something else in the final round.
Okay.
Where he dropped it, where he lost in the center, but he played it 3 rounds in a row. There seems to be a lot of people like. A lot of time people at the top tables playing it, but a lot of people definitely in the room and like in that X1 bracket playing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, if a lot of people showed up with red, I mean, that kind of works.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also, I think, because zombies is a. I think that this standard format's been really kind of weird in Scotland, for example, because the PPTQ season has been modern.
Mhm.
So a lot of people going internationals didn't have standard decks.
Right.
And zombies is, I don't think was the best choice at all for nationals, but it's quite easy to have put together if you had been playing standard previously, because lots of people had been playing zombies in Scotland previous to this, because it had been a deck previous to our standard,
Right.
Mhm.
or like earlier on.
And additionally, I think it's a popular deck. Like
Yeah.
tribal decks are also like
Yeah.
fairly popular, and the zombies deck is quite fun to play. Like Crypto Breakers. are
Yeah,
really
it's fun to
powerful
play, and
cards.
it's not like really complicated, and you're not like, oh, how do I play the mirror? You're like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
you play your dudes,
Yeah,
and then you draw
exactly.
cards with Crypt Breaker, and then you grind your opponent to death.
So I played that against that in my that would have been my 4th round then, and managed to come out on top. They were really tight games, but I had a lot of fun playing against it. Sweltering Sun sideboard plan, 100% worth it. And then the last round I played against red, and that was against Luke. I think I was playing in the last round, and that was really tight. I think I ended up reanimating 3 Earthshaker Kenras in a row in game 3 just to get over the finish line. But he had tripped in lands the first couple times. I was so scared because I lost the die roll, and Luke looks at me and he was like, "So this is a mono red mirror, I think, right?" And I was just there like, "Oh, I had no idea you were playing red. You just won the dice roll. Oh God, here we go." But
So was this after keep decisions?
no, this was
Okay.
this was right
I
beforehand.
think
So
looks nice like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's super
Luke-
nice.
yeah, Luke was very nice to me. I was glad I got to see that.
nice.
But yeah, finished 4-1 after taking that down, and I was feeling pretty happy going into the draft. But
That's a good record at the end of construction. Yeah.
yeah, more on that later
Okay.
about how my draft
Well,
went.
what we'll
but-
do is we'll circle around to Alex. He can talk about his constructed, and then we'll talk about the drafts, just as a kind of get together for that. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I played Temur Splashing Black for Scarab Gods and sideboard Hour of Glory. The deck was fine, I think. It's a sort of deck I generally prefer playing, which is like a mid-rangey type deck that's got game in most matchups, and you're sort of 60 to 40 against most of the decks in the field. I never felt like any of my games were like super interesting. A lot of them were decided by mulligans or someone being on the play and getting to like run the other person over, or forcing the other person to be on the back foot, and then eventually they stumble. And on that theme, I have some keeper moles from the tournament.
Ooh, I'm excited about this. I'm excited.
I've not told the rest of the guys.
I was
I'll
literally
run them
no
past them
idea.
now.
Yeah.
So, game 1 I played against Ferg.
Okay.
I managed to beat him in the mirror.
Was it a team of black mirror specifically?
I didn't see any black lines out of him,
Okay,
so it might have just been like the semi-mirror. Game 1, I'm on the opponent of the club and run him over. Game 2, I stumble on mana. Game 3, I have a Dispel to prevent him from catching back up.
He was not happy about that dispel.
Yeah.
We were talking outside afterward. He was like, "I don't think it's even right to run dispel." I was like, "I don't know."
That was the 15th card I put in my sideboard. I was thinking about playing a Dispossess, but Alex Murray taught me into playing a Dispel. So
Fair
you can blame Alex Murray, Ferg.
Woo.
Game round 2, I played against James. He was playing green white ramp. Game 1, he stabilized with Fumigate. Game 2, I have the gates to stop him from getting going, and in game 3, he stumbles on lands, and again, I have enough pressure to come over. So then round 3, my round 3, so round 4 in the tournament, off the 1 by, I'm playing against Kevin. He's playing ramp.
Green,
I
white.
saw earlier he was playing a green-red ramp deck. I sat next to him in the previous round.
I remember this.
So against him, I'm on the play. I'm mulligan to 5, and my hand is a Tune Leafer Long Tusk Cub, Rogue Refiner. I can't remember the last card exactly, but I think it's like a Bristling Hydra, 4+ drop or something.
Mm-hmm. You're at 5.
Would you keep or
You
mulligan?
play or draw?
Play.
I'm on the play.
Oh God.
I'd keep that.
I keep that.
Yeah, I think you go for it. Like, what are you really hoping
You're
for?
on the play. If you get a land and you play a turn 2 cub and they don't have the answer for it because that's not what their hand is.
Well, you can play a turn 3 cub.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
At the best.
Because you can't draw a land on your first turn because you're on the play.
Oh crap! Yeah. Okay.
So like the best case scenario from it is bad, but I don't think that there are 4s that are. Like,
I don't know.
good.
Maybe you do throw that back. How many? Like, I'm trying to think how many of your lands are green in the first place to be able to throw it down. Because like you
18 green sources in the deck. 16 would enter untapped
on a 50.
So with the
55
scry
card stack,
yeah. So with the scry, you get like 2 chances at 33%. I mean, better than flipping a coin, but
It's like, but it's not just that. It's like you're not just like, oh well, is this better than 50%? It's is my 4 better than this?
yeah. Exactly.
But I genuinely think that like that's the sort of hand you like that looks kind of weird and like not intuitive to keep. But I think that like that's the best you can hope for at 5.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I agree with that thinking. I couldn't see a 4 that was but I felt my average 4 was likely to be just as like non-functional.
Because even if you got the turn 2 cub, sorry to interrupt, but like the Rogue Refiner really smooths things out if you find your third land.
Also, having the second cub gave me a chance. I wasn't at this time like I thought he was just green red, so I thought I might have the chance where I could go like I play my first cub, he kills my first cub, I play my second cub, and he doesn't have an answer for that. So that's like what I was hoping, basically.
Yeah.
I kept an NC a Spire Bluff Canal on top of my deck.
Immediate bottom. It's not. It doesn't count. It's not a land.
Bottom.
I bottom it. Yeah.
I think
No, because you have
to.
an attune, like.
Yeah, like the thing is.
Yeah, I also bottomed. Like I want my second land's coming from my tune. I need to find a green source. So
Yeah.
I bottomed. I ended up not drawing a land until like turn 4 or something, and it's too late at that point. But,
Sure. I mean, like I think that kind of hand is one that's easy to get results oriented with. Of like, oh, well, I didn't draw a land, so it was wrong. It's like, well.
Yeah,
no.
I mean, I would make the same decision again.
Yeah,
I would.
I mean, like having the blue-red line doesn't get you closer. So.
I mean, both on the keypad.
Yeah,
right,
agreed.
Yeah. So game 2, he beats me pretty handily. He has I actually like. There's a decision this is like one of the few times when I had a decision. Basically, I'm holding up an Hour of Glory, and I have the option to cast it on his Uvalmold Hydra. But he's just cast a World Breaker and is getting an Ulamog, and I think I need to save the Hour of Glory for his Ulamog. My next draw was a Confiscation Coup, so it turned out I could have like killed his Uvalmold Hydra and then Confiscation Coup his Ulamog, and I actually think I might have ended up winning the game. As it was like the loss of the 4 mana, like I never really got a chance to catch back up again. So Hydra like very big is basically abyssing me.
I mean, like how many draws in the deck though? You know, do you have that deals with the Ulamog? So you have the 1 Hour of Glory in the sideboard.
The one Hour of Glory and 2 Confiscation Coups.
I mean,
I don't think it's just about the percentages. I think it's like. It's also about like how lucky do I need to get?
Yeah.
Like, do I need to draw that Confiscation Coup to win, or like if I don't use this Hour of Glory, am I actually going to lose? Like, no matter what I draw, if it's not Confiscation Coup.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one to see in the moment.
Yeah,
though.
I definitely agree.
That's why I'm trying to be kind of more aware of is like, if they have an Ulamog coming in, you know it. You definitely can't beat the Ulamog. You save the Hour of Glory because you might be able to.
I think in hindsight it turned out to be wrong. I just needed to remove the Overmort Hydra. I fell too far behind on board by not removing it, and I just needed to like hope that I would draw into my Confiscation Coup.
Because that's the only way that you win that game. Because that's what I was gonna say. Like the board state is so unassailable at that point.
Yeah.
So Nathaniel's point is like, you know.
You're already in such a bad position. Sometimes when you're really behind, you need to play as if you're going to get lucky.
Yeah,
because
that's
so instead,
that's what needs to happen.
Instead, I used my mana to crack some clues, and my hand filled up with 4 and 5 drops. I could only ever cast 1 spell for the rest of the game. So I was able to get like enough track.
And if you'd been like good on tempo at that crucial point in the game, then I mean, actually, you just have an Ulamog in that situation.
So I took my first loss to Kevin there. He went on to make top 8. Congratulations to him. And then I put in the next round Duncan. Duncan was playing Cardu.
Is that what he called it? That sounds like something Duncan would say.
That's what the Glasgow guys call it.
Oh, okay.
Cardu. And game 1, I mulled 5 again, because I'm never lucky.
Sure.
So now against Mardu, and my hand is Swamp, Attune with Ether, Rogue Refiner, Magma Spray, Abrade.
Nah, I chuck that. Wait, so Swamp, Attune with Ether...
Rogue Refiner, Magma Spray, Abrade.
And we're
No way.
on the draw?
On the play.
On the play, unknown matchup? Known matchup.
No against
no,
Mardu.
game 2, okay.
No, game 1 against Mardu.
Game
I
one.
know he's playing Mardu. It's
Okay.
game 1.
Take me through it again. Sorry, I know we've done it twice.
Swamp,
Yep.
Attune with Ether, Rogue Refiner, Magma Spray, Abrade.
No, I chuck that. But the hand doesn't do anything.
I mean, it's like very similar to the hand that we talked about
Interesting.
against Ramp. But I also think that the
I think-
context is different.
The thing is, you need so many colors. You need to draw a green source.
Actually, it's draw green source.
Yeah, like
A
this-
green
I
source
guess that's
draws me a
fair,
red
yeah.
source.
And if anything,
Like, it's possible I don't get to cast the rogue. If I draw exactly basic forest, then I don't get to cast. But what my green lands are green, blue, or green, red jewel lands. And if I draw green, red jewel lands, I can actually go and get an island if I want to cast a rogue refiner.
This is a fair point. I mean, I don't have a ton of experience playing energy. I was actually listening to the game podcast, and they were talking about, I think it was either game or top level, and they were talking about these 1-mana fixers and just how strong having a 1 green mana fixer is. And I think this is one of those situations.
Turns out Lay of the Land is busted.
But having it in a format is crazy good for fixing. Because like my first just like gut knee-jerk reaction was like Swamp and like my 1 splash color and all these cards I can't play. No way I'm keeping that. And everyone's talking now. I'm like, actually, yeah, I guess you do keep that.
Yeah.
Like that
I
does
mean-
make sense.
sorry again. Play draw.
Play.
Ugh.
I think you keep it.
I think you do, because especially game 1, you have certainly enough 4s that are worse, where like you have no removal spells, and you basically have nothing you're drawing to, right?
Yep.
Where you have like a really, like, something that basically just can't deal with your opponent's aggression, and like there's no way you're going to outrace them when you're on 4 and they're on 7. He's kept 7, right?
6.
Okay, sure. You're on 4 and they're on 6, and there's no way you outrace them. There's just like 0 chance that you beat the aggressive Mardu deck in like an actual straight creature race, I think. At least that, like, sure, there are some games where you do, but I think it's just so unlikely that it's not worth thinking about. So we're thinking about, like, once we're at this low cards, we want to be, like, reactive enough, but then, like, have something that we can do that starts to pull us back ahead.
Yeah.
So this hand has all those things, it just has shitty lands.
Okay.
But you can't have everything in these hands that are, like, 5s and 4s. You can't keep, like, oh, I'm going to mull to a 4, which has reactive spells, something to pull me back, and good land. And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well,
That's just
so many things.
I mean, I kept this kind of figured it was just missing a green source from what I would like to have. Like, I have some removal spells for particularly problematic permanents for Hard to Cure and Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Yeah.
And I have a way to get on board in Rogue Refiner that also like progresses my game plan of getting towards my powerful 5-mana spells.
Yeah. So we keep. What's the
So
top
I
of the
kept
deck?
I scried a Whirl Virtuoso to the bottom.
Yep.
Yep.
Drew a Spiral Bluff Canal on turn 2, just
jeez.
like we planned it. Actually, so his threats line up very well against mine. I get to like Magma Spray, Scrap Heap Scrounger, and then the Braid of Hard to Cure again.
Oof.
But I don't draw like a green source fast enough until
Yeah.
like there's already
And actually, he's just
But
playing
yeah, There's
Magic.
already Gideon on top.
You're not
of
playing
the
Magic,
top.
and then yeah.
So game 2 against him, I'm on the play, and it's my 6 Lumbering Fulls, 2 of them, Sheltered Thicket, that's the red-green cycle land.
Yep.
Spiral Bluff Canal, Botanical Sanctum, and a forest.
So it's 6 lands.
No. I mean, I know you've been punished a lot of times with these 5s, but you don't keep that.
Yeah. Okay. So one of
sense.
them's a cycle land.
And you're
That's-
playing against Mardu?
And you're on the
No,
play.
you're just gonna get wrecked.
So
How many lands does the
so
deck play?
okay, no. That's rather than
23.
just like
I have
knee-jerk
23
reacting-
lands in the deck.
Rather than knee-jerk reacting to like it's 6 lands, let's think about it. Like, what's the plan with the hand? So like, we play as Lumbering Fulls. So we scry, we see something.
Probably a land.
We scry a land to the bottom or any action to the top.
Yeah.
So we're like reasonably likely to draw action for our first draw of the game.
Yeah, that's why I was
We
asking.
play a
how many lands
Lumbering
are in the
Fulls.
deck.
We untap. We draw. We probably don't draw a 2-drop. We play like we have fast lands in the hand. We have like Botanical Sanctum, right?
Yeah, so
Play
they're making
Botanical Sanctum.
cycle.
Cycle the land. So now like by turn 3 we've seen 3 new cards.
Yeah.
It's reasonably likely that one of them has to have been a removal spell to not be in a really bad position against Mardu because their early threats hit so hard.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be like an Abrade or a Harness Lightning.
Or like Magma Spray, I think could be fine depending on what they play.
Yeah, I guess that depends on the draw, but
Sure, but like I think we can count Magma Spray as a
how
light
many
draw.
Magma Sprays were you running?
2.
So it's 10 spells we're drawing to.
Do you have
9.
more post sideboard?
Free abrades for Harness Lightnings at 2 mana and less.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think I'm mulligan that hand.
I mean, I'm not arguing we should keep it. I'm just like trying to
Yeah,
think through the
running
actual
through it.
line of
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
what are we drawing to? How are we playing the game?
I think if we know we're against Mardu, having tempo is so important for that matchup early in the game. And like you're basically saying,
Has our opponent kept 7?
Yes.
Okay. I think I would mulligan it because, like, the line that I just outlined, where we play a tap land, then cycle, then play a fast, like, and then like hopefully play something on turn 3, sounds like it just sounds like it's so hard to.
This is game 2, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
How have we sideboarded? I think that might be important.
I set up my deck in a way where I want to be the control in the matchup. I'm just going to remove his threats, and then I'm going to win with a powerful feeling that he can't answer, like the Scarab God.
Or a Hydra.
Or,
maybe.
a Hydra with lots of energy.
Okay.
That makes sense. That's actually kind of how I assumed we were positioned.
Absolutely.
I have like
I
Tireless Tracker and stuff, so probably like
Yeah.
card advantage.
Okay.
To pull.
And,
I still think that the 6-land hand is like. I still think that like an average 5 is better than what we can hope to draw off the top of the deck.
Yeah, because I think like if
I
there's
hear what you're saying, but I think the correct answer is to tilt keep like I did.
I definitely know that feeling.
Oh man. Okay. And then what did you draw? What did you scry?
I scried a land to the bottom.
Yep. And then you drew.
My first draw step was a tune with Ether.
Oh, dead.
nice.
Dead.
I cycled into a Harness Lightning, and I get to kill his Heart of Kieran.
Okay.
Okay.
Then you draw
Spending all
another
my
land.
energy because he plays a retro motor, so it's a 5/5, and then I just draw like
Jeez.
land, a tune, land.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Tilt keep.
Classic.
Lesson learned, kids. Lesson learned.
I knew you were going to say that you'd kept from your body language, and then I was
Yeah.
like, I think it would just be wrong to, though, and that doesn't really sound like Alex, and then you were like, Tilky, and I'm like, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
I've done way too many of those early in my Magic career, where I'm just like,
So I ended standard 3 and 2, which was probably dead for top 8. As it turned out, there were a few draws in the tournament, which one time was technically alive, so figured I'd keep playing because the draft format's great.
Yeah, draft format is fantastic. So, let's talk about your draft decks. Talk about your drafts. Take it away, Holt.
Oh god, my draft was 100% a train wreck. So I finished 4-1. I was feeling pretty good. I got 16th place, so I was in the second pod, and it was pretty stacked.
Yep.
It had Brando in it. Kevin was in it. Rui was in it. I was in it. There were a couple other players too that I didn't know.
yeah, my pod was stacked. I was in it.
I mean, like
I know, it's okay. I just
talking about it, everyone was like, "Oh, we think that's for sure like one of the more difficult pods." And like I was kind of jealous. I really wanted to be like one step above or just right below that, but it was like, okay.
Is this why you said you were in the death
Oh,
pod?
Yeah.
So I know you put that on Facebook, and I was like, what does that mean? Is he in the pod with all the people with terrible breakers?
No. There was Fletch, wasn't it? As well.
Was
I
Fletch
think.
in it?
Yeah, I think so. Or
Yeah, sounds tough.
yeah, Fletch was in it as well.
How'd the draft go?
I'm not describing every
So
pod
I
as
was
a
next to two
stacked
players I
pod.
did not know. I think one of them was called Mark in the end. They were nice enough guys.
Okay.
I had such a confusing draft. My draft ended up a total train wreck. Spoilers, I went 0-3, to be perfectly honest, to round out my 4-1 into a 4-4. But my first pack 1 pick 1 was Dream Stealer. Pack 1 pick 2 was the Matriarch or whatever, Majestic.
Matriarch?
Yes, I got
Yeah.
past that, and I was like,
What was missing from the pack?
it was a common.
Oh, it must be a foil.
Must
I
have been.
might
Must
have-
have been a foil. Must
Must have
foil.
been, right?
There's
but,
like no way.
but what do you take over that, though? Like, it has to be
Invocation.
literally the Scary God.
Invocation, any of the gods, Nicol Bolas.
I mean, maybe, but, like, I got past that, and, like, the uncommons were good as well. I passed the Tenacious Hunter, I took the Majestic Mariac, and started trying to move into green. And then, like, green started being, like, pretty mad, so I was like, okay, well, I'll stick with black, I have some decent stuff. And then that started kind of going away, and suddenly, just, like, I was just a pack, it was like a pack of dregs by, like, 5th or 6th pack, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And then I got passed back the other way, and I got past a bunch of, like, on the second pack, I got some pretty decent green-black cards. I got, like, Driven to Despair, I got an Obelisk Spider, I got, like, a 6th pick Ambuscade, so I'm like, okay, maybe I am in the right seat, maybe this is coming together. And then again, the same thing, dries up. Like, there was one point where maybe I was thinking about taking a Puncturing Blow, I think 2nd pick, but then I took I'm trying to think what I took over it, but I was like, I feel like moving into double red now is kind of hard. Like, I don't have that much fixing or anything like that. I feel like my rares are more powerful than Puncturing Blow is, so I don't really want to abandon it. And it's the beginning of the second pack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure more stuff will come around. After that Ambuscade, suddenly it was just like nothing. And I was like, oh god, this is not going well. What do I do? Third pack,
I think I Slither Blade in it. Just play Slither Blade. Then Gucci would be proud.
It's broken.
If only. No, third pack.
The one pack Slither Blade deck.
Third pack was just extremely medium. I finished up my draft with honest. I was playing like 4 colors just to get playables. It was very bad. It was dire, and I was keeping on thinking back to this draft, like what could I have done different? Like clearly things were getting cut, but there was no reason to move into another color. So do I stick with my rares? It was really tough. I came back to the table. First round, I got paired to the guy on my left, who was also in green black, and I was like, literally how? I was cutting all the green and black cards out of like pack 1. Okay, and then I ended up playing the guy to my right who was in white
Say
black.
green black again.
No, he was not in green black. I would have like been like, no.
Black drops at the
Did
table.
you ask him what he took? Pack 1, pick 1?
Huh?
Did you ask him what he took in the first?
I can. I didn't end up asking him. I didn't end up.
I'd
asking
love it
him.
if it wasn't even like something good. If he was like Majestic Miriarch, nah, buddy. I've heard Open Fire is great.
Mate,
I think it was something like that, or like he told me specifically that player that he wasn't very good at this format. He didn't really know what was
Do you
going
know what I think it was?
Fair enough.
a foil Majestic Miriarch.
I mean, I would take that.
me.
I mean,
Just
yeah.
to like mess around my opponent's signaling.
Yeah, just
So
tell them.
like, how? You must
Also-
not take an agreed card.
Also, I bet it's really pretty.
So,
Yeah.
so I played against the green black player first, and his deck was it was actually pretty close games. I went to game 3. I was playing very badly, if I'm perfectly honest. I just like my head wasn't in it. I was very tired at this point. It was like, God, it must have been like 7 o'clock at night. I'd been up
I think
at
it was like between 6 and 7.
6 and 7,
first round
and
draft.
like I'd gotten up at like literally 7 a.m. to catch the train or whatever, or get my lift over. It was pretty rough, so I wasn't playing my best, but in the end, it turned out he came out on top. My round 2 was against Fletch, who was playing the cycling deck, and I got mana screwed one game, and the other game he just kind of rolled me. It was terrible. And then the last time I played against the player on my right, who was on white black zombies, and 3 times I resolved Majestic Miriarch with a board of like 4 creatures. 3 times he had Bontu's Last Reckoning to wipe the entire board.
No.
So I ended up 0-3, and I kind of was just looking back at that draft. I was pretty upset afterwards, and I was just like, what could I have done different?
The third
What could I have
time,
done different?
the third time you're about to play your card, where you're just like, "There's no way he has it again." Is that what you're thinking in your
What
head?
the worst
Well, if you say that 100%.
Yeah, like literally.
The worst part was that I kind of had to play into it because all my fixing, I told you I was playing 4 colors, but I had some decent fixing. On game 3 after a mulligan, my only multicolored cards, I had a bunch of black cards in hand, and my only way to cast stuff was by having creatures on the table, because I had 3 survivors encampments and all forests. I didn't draw a single swamp as my off color. I was just sitting there like, oh god, this is terrible. If he has Bontu's Last Reckoning, I'm done anyways. Because I'll never be able to cast another spell in my hand unless I just naturally draw a swamp. Alright, let's go. And,
I've heard that the moment you play into your opponent's powerful spell, they draw it.
That's
No, it puts it on top of their deck.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I
Instantly.
didn't know about that. Like, I wish that happened to me more.
Whenever I play Arena,
Should try
Hearthstone
something
Arena,
powerful
and I
spells.
don't play around Flame Strike, my opponent draws it. Every time.
yeah. They're like totally hellbent, and they're like, "Oh, cheers, cool, yeah, let's go." Then you know it's that card.
So, I presume your draft went hopefully better than mine did. I believe it did.
No, to be fair, I would play a 4/4 in Limited way more often than a 4/1.
So,
What?
I think that's a Hearthstone joke. I'm
No,
going
I
to
mean-
ignore it.
Holt said that his draft became a 4/4 after a 4/1. I'm saying I would play that way more.
Right.
Thanks.
So I drafted a blue-red deck. The end of pack one was interesting because I first picked a the constructed one, the 2-1 haste Earthshaker camera.
Earthshaker
Yeah.
camera.
I first picked that over. Don't remember what it was over actually. There was a good card in the pack, but
close.
not as good as Earthshaker Kenra.
Okay.
Next pick I took. I'm deciding between a Vizier of the Anointed, the 2/4 that tutors for an Embalm or Eternalize guy, and then draws a card when you Embalm or Eternalize, and an Open Fire. So I'm just taking Open Fire because I think these cards are like comparable power level, and
Open Fire's better in more decks.
Might as well just stay in the one color.
Yeah.
I then take like some more cards, and blue seems to be somewhat open. I get like some decent-ish blue cards, but none of them are like particularly aggressive. Normally the blue-red deck is fairly aggressive. I end up getting Wheeling, the Vizier of the Anointed.
Nice.
So I'm thinking, alright, so blue and red seem reasonably open. My deck isn't super aggressive, no. Like I have some like removal spells, and I picked up like a couple of travel assignments because I don't really get anything in the pack, and I like taking those so you can like splash easily. They're also good in blue and red because they trigger your prowess guys.
Okay,
in your land
That's
slots.
good. Yeah.
And like you play Imminent Doom if you open an Imminent Doom. So I quite like Travel's Amulet in the blue red archetype. I find it
I
just
think
does a lot of things.
we played a draft, right, where we drafted like a couple of amulets in blue red, and it was good.
So then, beginning of pack 2, I open the pack, and I'm deciding between the best card for my blue red deck is a Puncturing Blow, but the best card in the pack is a River Hoopoe. I say River Hoopoe because I have this Travel's Amulet, I'm not particularly fast blue red deck. I think I play it, splash it, maybe I sideboard it, whatever. Next I can do the same again, take another Hoopoe over another Puncturing Blow. Wheel one of the Puncturing Blows. In this time, I pick up like some aggressive cards, some blue red. Hoopoes are in my sideboard. I'm like, great, I'll sideboard them in if I need to. Round 1, I play against Stuart. He's playing a Wet Black Zombies deck. And turns out that when your deck is full of unsummons and like 1-mana combat tricks, you're pretty good against a deck that's like 3s and 4s and mana creatures. And round 2 up against Luke, and he's got a very similar deck. He's got a slow blue-black deck. And again, we do the same. So in this time, it turns out because of the draws and the way the pod play works out, there are, going into the final rounds, there are 8 players at 18 points or more.
Okay.
But they can't all draw in because there's 2 players at 16 points.
Right.
Who are going to threaten the 19 pointers because the bottom 18 pointers have reasonably poor tie breaks.
Okay.
I'm playing against one of them in the final round, Ed. And it turns out my tiebreakers are quite good, so if I get to 18 points, I have a chance of getting in. And I just play terribly in the entire match. He's playing this like white control deck that has like multiple sandblasts and compulsory arrests. I saw one Desert Toll, but otherwise like nothing that can stop a Hoopoe. Completely forget to sideboard my Hoopoes in, and proceed to lose a close second match. His deck was good. He had like a white-green Abandoned Sarcophagus deck, which was sweet.
Wow.
That sounds insane.
He had like Rampaging Hippo, and
That's like the
he
card
had like 2 Gideon's Interventions, which were actually surprisingly good.
Yep.
It's like the Winged Shepherd and stuff like that. So yeah, his deck was nice, and he beat me in the final round to make top 8.
Good job, Ed.
Good draft.
Okay, so I guess that completes.
I do have a story about Holt's deck though, because we were sat at the same table for deck building, and I glance across at Holt's deck because I'm not like looking too much on building my deck, but he's directly opposite me, so I see a little bit of his deck, and I see there are multiple colors of cards, and there are green cards. I'm pretty sure I saw an Oasis Ritualist, and I'm like, yes, Holt has multicolored green.
Yeah, there was
I think
an
that's
Oasis
the best archetype. So when I leave and like Holt comes over to me, I'm like, your deck looked good, and he's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, it was multicolored green, not my choice.
Yes. I was splashing for a solitary camel to have another creature.
Oh, jeez.
Like it was great.
That's horrendous.
It was horrendous. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, let's move on. So I guess that's a good opportunity. We should talk about top 8.
Top 8 was good from what I saw. Lots of good guys.
Yeah, and yeah, when we mentioned the 2 guys that made it to the final to join Bradley Barkley on the team.
Yep.
Again, as you said, Nathaniel, like pretty stacked team, and if somebody could have picked it, this is definitely up there.
We drew it up.
In terms of the standard decks that were played during the top 8, we had a couple of blue-black control decks make it. We had a couple of Ramonap Red, 2 ramp decks, one of which Naya, which we'll get to in a moment. Stock Team Energy, like Jerry Thompson build, took the tournament. And Tang was on Muddy Vehicles to come second place. So I think we should probably talk about Naya Ramp a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely the most interesting deck in the top 8. So I played against Kevin in my third round 4 of the tournament, and he's playing all red and green lands, but he has several double white spells in his deck. So he has a Linvala and 4 Fumigates, and then I think in the sideboard he might have some more. He definitely has Regal Caracals because he boarded them in against me.
He also has Cut to Ribbons, which,
He has
while obviously he's
too,
not actually playing black as a primary color, I do think that what we're about to talk about, how he's playing his white cards, is relevant to Cut to Ribbons.
Descend upon the Sinful as well on the sideboard.
I love that card.
The interesting thing is that almost all of his white cards are 3 white, which means that you can cast them on turn 4 off of Weirding Wood or Gift of Paradise.
Okay.
The double mana fixers, like you cast them on turn 4. And like you treat the double white course like a single white. So you effectively have 8 sources of tap for a double white between that.
So the double cost's not really a consideration because as soon as you draw those cards, you've got the.
Now that might sound a bit risky, and I think it is, but Kevin has some additional tech in that he is playing Cascading Cataracts. 1 Cascading Cataracts. That's 5. It's the indestructible land rare from Amonkhet.
You can
taps for colorless, and you can pay 5 and tap it to color filter 5 mana.
Yeah.
It makes 5 mana of any color, right?
Makes 5 mana.
So you could make
any choices of color.
Oh, right. I thought it was just Wooburg.
Yeah, I was thinking.
No, it doesn't just filter for Wooburg. It filters for your choice of colors. So it effectively makes your Fumigate just cost 6 generic mana.
And
if you like.
Okay.
Right, but looking at the lands list now, there's no white lands.
No,
there are no white lands.
There's like 2 Ether Hubs.
What?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's 2 Ether Hubs.
Ether Hubs, we've got Cascading Cataracts, and we've got Sylvan Scrying to search for the Cascading Cataracts, and Uvelmold Hydra to search for the Cascading Cataracts.
Yes.
So effectively, between his 8 ramp enchantments, and Our Promise as well. Between 8 ramp enchantments, Our Promise, Sylvan Scrying, Cascading Cataracts, he effectively has like 15-ish double white sources, which makes casting the double white spells like fairly reliable.
Okay.
There is a question at that point whether it's worth playing red still. That I think that maybe you can move to just like the green-white list like we've seen in the GP, and like Peter played also in top 8.
Yeah, if you're playing Fumigate, what's he even playing red for?
He had a braid. He always abraded by turn 2 cub. Never lucky.
Never lucky.
Well, turn 2, turn 5, whatever. Whenever I got around to casting my cub, he had the braid. We saw in the cut. I'm not sure what else he has. Like, he has Ramunap Runes, like, gives you some reach. I've played the Bramp list before, and it allows you to, like, contain planeswalkers and stuff like that.
So, you're playing
looks like he has some Pianolars in the sideboard.
He's a Distended Mindbender in the sideboard.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
2 Magma
Sprays.
2 Lost Legacy.
So, it's an interesting innovation. Like, the format's at its end, so it's not clear to me whether this will go further. My feeling is this is worse than the green-white list because you're in game 1. I don't think you can ever really beat a negate because you're clutching so hard on these non-creature spells to fix your mana.
Yes.
It does make your mana base like very sketchy. That said, like there aren't any decks playing main deck negate at the moment, so. I think that's like a reasonable weakness to give yourself.
I think it's pretty funny that like just looking through the land, I don't think it's that important for the discussion we're having, but part of me is just laughing because there's like a Seagate Wreckage in there, a Scavenger Grounds. I'm just sitting there, he's just laughing. Like laughing in the face of
I mean, once you have Sylvan Scrying.
Having played the ramp list, once you have Our Promise, just putting one singleton lands in your deck is great because you're like, I've already got my 10 mana for Ulamog, but I have this Our Promise to cast. I'm going to go get my Seagate Wreckage, and now I'm just drawing 2 cards every turn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Scavenger Grounds also has been really good for me whenever I tested ramp decks. People just know this now, right? They're like, Scavenger Grounds is really good when you're playing Our Promise because Incidental Graveyard Hate is good against a lot of the format.
And it's a desert that you want anyway.
So, the other list that we were going to have a look at was the Muddy Vehicles list piloted by Tang. To 2nd place finish. What do you guys think of this one?
Notably, it's more aggressive than the other ones. So he's playing Inventor's Apprentice, 3 of them. Only 2 Gideons in the main deck, and a Hazaret as the other 4 drip.
There's a Glorybound Initiate,
and
a Thalia Heretic Cathar, which are both also like aggressive cards.
And we see all 4 Heart of Kieran, which I think I might have seen some lists playing like 3 or people talking about.
There are people who went down on them, but especially if you're not playing Gideon. Playing as Heart of Kieran makes sense.
But this one's only playing like 1 shock and a fail push, and when I spoke to Duncan, he said he was like just very interested in just getting people dead. He just wanted to like play a deck that was like had as much like power to run people over as possible.
I was pretty interested by the fact he's running 3 veteran motorists and 1 glory bound initiate when he's running 6 vehicles. I would think you want the full 4, but
Well, I assume that Glory Round Initiate is like a concession to like
Red.
rounding
Yeah.
out red, and also it depends how good his mana is.
yeah, I guess
But
that's true.
only needing white is a big deal. Like there were people who talked about replacing veteran motorists with Glory Bound Initiate, even when in like Mardu Ballista, for example, because sometimes you didn't have, especially when it was like more of a black-white deck. Sometimes you didn't have red on turn 2, and not needing to have red on turn 2 was a big deal. Obviously, this deck does still need red quite early, so I would assume that like it's for the life gain is a bigger thing. But like this certainly looks like this reminds me of a list that, or similar to how I played Mardu vehicles back when there was a deck that played Ulamog on turn 4.
Yeah, that one.
And you needed to be like really aggressive.
Yeah, kill him dead.
I splash blue because I really can't stop myself from splashing a 4th color in my shaky 3-color mana bases.
The 4th color is free.
Yeah,
It's free. I mean, yeah, at that point you may as well.
You
right?
take some mountains out and you're good to go.
Yeah, sick.
Fire bluff canals.
Sick. But certainly, like playing things like Hazoret is to me like a big indication of like I'm just gonna try and make people dead, and I'm not really worried about transforming into some kind of like value deck because that's just not what I'm interested in.
I think interesting. Duncan spoke. He said he was interested in spiking the event, and I think that reflected some of his choices in the thing. And I think that is something that I chose to play like a conservative deck. Cause that's the sort of decks I like. But it's a interesting.
Yeah, the list has got a plan.
It's definitely
built
an
in a certain
approach.
way. So a lot of the Mardu decks in the weeks preceding this were playing main deck Thought Not Seer. He's got them in the sideboard.
Yeah, I would imagine that's a curve consideration.
He's also playing a land in the sideboard.
He's playing fewer lands, and or has the 2 Gideon, which are better when you like have more 1-drops in your deck because the emblem can be more relevant. So.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
So we'll just talk about everybody who made the top 8. Just congratulations to Stephen Murray, first place. Duncan Tang, second. We had Peter Dean in third. Paul Murray, brother of Stephen Murray, in 4th place. Kevin, and then rounding out top 8, we had Kevin Pass, Stephen France, Ed Ross, and Gennaro Di Pietro.
It's one of our locals.
Yeah, that's that's going to Vault guy in here. But yeah, good job, everyone.
Just going to point out that my 3 losses were to 3 members of the top 8.
Oh, there you go.
Get my complaint equity.
Never lucky. So, it was a really good Nationals. Thanks very much to Geek Critique for hosting and everything.
Yeah, Declan's running and then Snap and Dan for doing the majority.
Yeah, and everyone had a good time. And even though we didn't get the 2-day Nationals that we wanted, at the same time,
they were also receptive to feedback, and we'll be forwarding stuff to Watsy about how the event was run.
That's good. So yeah, good job, guys. Thanks very much. It's probably a good moment to just reflect on this standard as a whole. I didn't play very much of it because, as we said earlier, it was modern season, and I already knew that I wasn't making Nationals because I was away for work a few weeks in advance. So I didn't really play very much of it. Those who did, what do you think?
I did not enjoy it. I think it's just partly that there wasn't really a deck that I really bonded with. It felt like often I didn't have much agency in the games. Basically, I mean, it might be a function of having played a lot of modern for PPTQ season, where your deck. I've been playing Death Shadow, and the deck functions on a very low amount of mana, and you have a lot of decisions. It felt the decks I played Ramp at the RPTQ and Teamer Black at Nationals, and I felt like if I ever missed a land before turn
5 or
4 or 5,
yeah.
I was just I had very little chance of winning the game, and I was really hoping that my opponent also stumbled.
Yeah.
And I didn't have much play to it. I think the format was obviously there's a lot of diversity now. People have talked about the opportunity to do it once, so I think the fact that I didn't enjoy it doesn't mean that it's bad. But
yeah, it's actually quite a controversial opinion. But I mean that might be that people are enjoying it just because we've had a slew of pretty terrible standards. So everyone's just happy that there isn't just something totally wrecking at everything. But
the one nice thing about that is you do know what to play.
Yeah,
You're just like, well, this deck is clearly so much better than everything else.
It's gonna get banned soon, so I better play it now.
Just play the cards that are gonna get banned
Buy
soon.
all the cards. Oh, yeah.
Whereas,
banned
like, now you're like, what do I actually play? Man, there's like 5 viable choices.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
Oh, man.
See,
How do I make this decision? I'm so used to just like, well, what should I play? Well, which one's busted?
Yeah.
Well, none of them are busted. No, there must be one.
There must be one. This is how it works,
this? It's funny because I have kind of the opposite opinion where I'm not sure this is the greatest standard ever, but I really, really enjoyed it after the wake of previous standards. And I felt like, because like I do know what you're saying, Alex, about like, oh, if I miss a land drop, especially playing the mid-range game, it's just so tough. And that was another reason I kind of liked switching to red, is it just needed a little bit less to function. It was a deck that like late game had mana sinks and early game was aggressive.
Okay.
But overall, what I've really liked is I felt like in a lot of those mid-range matchups, a lot of things get really tangled up and it's kind of messy. And I just felt like there was a lot of skill and play to it. It was like that first decision in the first game where it was like, do I make 3 Thopters and start racing your Hazoret now? Or do I need to have this blocker as a Bristling Hydra? You know what I mean? And it was, I think choices like that really defined this format.
I think there were some games like that, but I felt the number of non-games was too high for me.
I feel that. I can
Okay.
understand that.
What do we think about limited?
Limited's great. I love this format.
Yeah, it was-
I think the
Even though
general
you don't want to talk
consensus.
about your draft deck anymore.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about my draft deck, but this format's great. I've loved practicing it. I loved moving on to it.
In Limited in particular, I felt that there were the opposite almost of standard, where there's like very few non-games. All the deck archetypes were viable. So the best deck was whatever deck was open at your seat. You saw like a lot of the process discussion on Twitter, like, are the white aggressive decks good, are the slow black decks good, are the multicolored green decks good, and it turns out just whichever one is open is good.
Yeah, you'd see pros with like one pro would be like, I rate black the lowest in the set, and then Dustin Stern would be like, you're wrong, black is the best, and I have all these trophies to prove it, and I'd be like, well,
Martin uses like, but I have like 3 GP top 8s in this format because he does, and they're both right.
And, like, both people who are both seem really good at limited, both have like lots to back themselves up, and both like diametrically opposed opinions.
I loved going through the ratings because as a team we sat down, we did a big meeting about like rating the cards, how we find them in limited.
Yeah.
And Oketra's Avenger was the one we
Yeah.
were getting mad at each other about, sort of.
I didn't get mad at you. I just thought you were wrong.
Well, like we had pretty disagreeing opinions between the team. It wasn't just me. It was also like Andrew, Tim were like, yeah, I think I'd rather take a Oketra's Avenger over like a Desert as pack one, pick one, or whatever. But we were talking, and we realized by the end of the conversation, it mattered so much what your playstyle is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was something I brought to the table. It's like, maybe if you just feel more comfortable with the aggressive archetype, Oketra's Avenger is the right one to take.
You also mentioned there, I think the main reason for there being far fewer non-games were the deserts. The cycling deserts were just excellent. They make
so
limited
good.
really smooth. You can play more lands in your deck and you won't flood, and it just means that the games just play out really nicely.
That's it, because as we were playing Amonkhet, we were just thinking, oh, cycling's fantastic. And then you get through to Hour, and suddenly you have cycling lands,
Yeah.
and that's a huge deal.
I think the thing with Amonkhet is that cycling, non-land cyclers, I think, are slightly more skill testing. Because it's generally harder to see, I think.
Yeah, because you often know, like, I want to land or I don't want to land. It's not like, maybe I want this land. But like when you have like a Greater Sandworm, you're like, maybe I want this Greater Sandworm, but it's very far away.
Like sometimes it's a hard decision with the lands. So when you have like 4 lands in your hand, and you're like, well, maybe I want to just play this desert on turn 1.
Yeah.
Or maybe I want to hold it and risk having a bad turn later in the game, but also if I draw a land off the top, I'm going to want to cycle it, for example. So there were sometimes difficult decisions with that. They weren't like mindless, but I think that things like Strike Riverwinder, for example, got cycled like way more often than they should have as cards, because people look at it and go, well, I should spend my mana, and I'm not going to cast this card in the next like 3 turns, so I should cycle it. And it's like, well,
They don't observe the game. They don't recognize where the game is going, what the opponent's playing.
Also,
oftentimes
like,
you need like a reasonable amount of threat, right? If you're gonna throw away, or like
well, it's
you need urgency to trade it in.
but it's also like, so cycling lands get you out of mana flood, which I found more common in games of limited than mana screw most of the time. Whereas cycling non-land don't get you out of mana flood.
Yeah.
Because, like, oh, I've got this hand of 6 lands and a non-land cycler. Well, I don't really want to cycle it, because it's my only non-land card.
Yeah.
I'm more likely to turn it into a land if I cycle it than I am a non-land. Like, well, maybe not more likely, but, like, it's still a reasonable chance that I do that. And, like, what I'm doing is trying to cycle gas into different gas.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a non-card into a real card.
Absolutely, and you need. I don't know. I think it's very skill testing in that you know you have to be very conscious of what other cards are in your deck. Overall, what is your deck trying to do? What is the opponent's deck trying to do? And these all kind of feed into that decision. You know, there's a lot of variables to handle.
I think the main thing that non-land cyclers actually do is they allow you to play less lands in your deck, but the problem you have in limited is your mana base is so bad. If you're a 2-card deck, you essentially have to play 8 sources of a color to reliably see it. And that means that even if your deck is 75% cycling cards, you'd actually want to play something like 12 lands in that deck, because you'll just, if you need to, you can just cycle into lands. But you just can't because you won't see your colors enough. And that means that like your decks with lots of cycles are very prone to flood. On top of that, Amonkhet was incredibly aggressive, where just spending a mana to cycle a card was like a punishing thing to do.
Yeah, could be like an absolute liability.
In contrast to that, our Devastation and like Rune's balance between
the aggro decks are good,
the aggro decks
but they're not overpowering.
They're good, but they're not overpowering, and the only thing you can be doing, or something you always have to be building in mind. Like when you build your deck, you can build a deck that beats the other slow decks, except you'll lose the aggro decks. Whereas in Amonkhet, that was just something you could have never done, because you would have just lost like 80% of your matches with that deck.
Yeah, and just get absolutely run over. So overall, I think we all enjoyed it. I think the rest of the world enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, like, you saw people
more good
on Twitter talking about how, like, they think this is one of the best limited environments.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I do really think it's going to go down as one of them, and in 3 years' time, we might...
since Khan.
Since Khans, agreed. Since Triple Khans.
The ability to draft a 4-color deck and actually be able to play it to, like, multiple wins is a major factor in me enjoying a limited environment. If I can draft, like, 4 colors and be like, this deck's good.
Yeah,
and then beat people.
This is what I want in this.
That's
format.
what I'm doing.
Yeah. No, it's phenomenal. So yeah, we'll miss it, but we've got Ixalan coming up.
Yeah.
So
Ixalan's so exciting.
Obviously, it's kind of difficult to make too many talks about them. So let's think about standard. What cards are you excited for coming into the format? What have you looked at? What do you want to build a deck around, Nathaniel?
Okay, so I actually am really interested in lots of archetypes, but I've been devoting a lot of time to, like, trying to find looking at pirates and trying to find some kind of synergy there. Mainly because, like, Lookout's Dispersal, which we've nicknamed Pirate Leak.
Pirate Leak is great.
Which is 3 mana counter convolute, basically. It's 3 mana counter unless they pay 4, and it costs 1 less if you control a pirate. At which point it's like Mega Mana Leak, which is really strong for some kind of tempo build, which I'm really interested in playing because it's the kind of style of deck I like. But every list I build, I look at and go, can you beat mono red, or are you just terrible? And I still haven't settled on an idea I like for that. And I'm like, of the opinion that I might just be like barking up the wrong tree and trying to make an archetype work that isn't going to work. But I also think there is something there. So I'm interested in pursuing it.
I think Wizards are definitely trying to lead us down that track, just looking at, the amount of, like, blue-black tempo stuff that's in the set.
I also think that, for example, Scruffy Scrounger is still, like, a really good card.
Absolutely.
And I'm also interested in playing ally color decks if I'm going to be at all aggressive.
Because you get the...
or mid-rangey. Because I don't think enemy color mana bases work anymore.
Yeah, only having one set of dual lands is pretty punishing for like your intensive color.
Well, that being said, you do have those dual lands. I mean, it's not what you want in an aggressive deck, anyways. But you get the enemy tap lands.
You can play tap lands, but tap lands are like.
I don't think that you can like build a deck on those unless you have like a really good reason. I think that like the last few standard seasons, the good decks have been the ones with the good mana bases.
Yeah,
and that's been like consistently true for enough time that I'm like not really interested in going after decks that don't have good mana bases unless we have a really compelling reason to.
Okay, that makes sense. And besides that, like for multicolored things, I think you just want to be green. Attune with Ether.
Exactly.
So good.
Yeah, so you can play. I think that playing Teema is still very viable because Attune with Ether and Ether Hub together are such a strong pairing.
Absolutely.
But if you're not playing green, I don't want to have to play green in this format, despite how good Ripjaw Raptor is.
Ripjaw Raptor.
So like, I don't know. I'm interested in pursuing lots of things. I also think that like some kind of incorporating some of the good dinosaurs like Regisaur Alpha into a deck is also obviously something lots of people have been talking about. And I don't know what Merfolk are meant to be doing, but I kind of like.
Does anybody know?
I kind of like the green one. I want to say it's green. The one that like is Quirion Dryad. sense.
Right,
Yeah.
Deep Root Champion.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that
2
that's
mana, 1/1.
interesting.
Whenever you cast it on creature spell, it gets a counter.
Oh, and I really want that faux outpost siege. To be
Yeah, I love that card.
card's phenomenal.
I don't
Sweet.
think it's phenomenal, but I really want it to be.
I mean, I love the design, I guess is
Yeah.
what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. Like, the design's
Speaking
great.
of those, I think all those, I'm calling them quest lands.
Yeah.
Questlands are good. Yeah, I like that.
All these enchantments that flip into a land, and also the artifacts flip into lands. I think these designs are like great.
Yes.
They're incredibly flavorful. Like you can see how performing this action leads you to this thing.
Yeah.
And then you discover the land as like the result, and you get to use the land, and it's excellent. And I'm very interested in the blue one.
Yeah.
I know control decks are bad in standard, and that everyone's ended up playing it because they will have the problem where your cards need to line up against your opponent's card for them to be good. But I do think the blue one is like an excellent control finisher.
Yeah,
Like
it's
Tick, tick,
like
tick,
you-
so,
Yeah,
so the
what's
blue
it-
one,
what's it do?
the blue one is a 2-mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of the library. You may put it into your graveyard. Then, if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, it transforms, and it transforms into a legendary land. Taps for blue, or you can pay 2 blue and tap it to look at the top 4 and reveal a non-creature, non-land, and put it into your hand.
And that can be activated anytime. It doesn't have
Yeah.
the sorcery clause.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's second
Yeah.
ability. So
you
impulses.
can
strong.
impulse everything.
So impulse is first spell.
Yeah,
I think
nice.
it's called Quest for as a cattle. I forget the name you're actually searching for. But
Right,
yeah.
Or search for as a cattle.
I think it's search for as something. Yeah.
It's very interesting because it allows you to smooth your draws at the beginning of your game, and then gives you this very powerful source of card advantage. Then I think the problem you still have that problem. I think particularly with Red in the format where you need to have some cheap interaction that's universally good. I don't know. I've not seen enough cards like that to make me think
Yeah.
the control will be good. I think people will still play it, and it may be playable on the back power of Scarab God and of this land.
Yeah.
But I'd be interesting to see.
I think blue,
That's the card I'd most like to be good and like to play with.
blue black is kind of running into the issue now with grass bleeding. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, geez, how do you deal with Hazaret?
So, I do agree with that. Although I think I've been exploring options with that, and I'm interested. But I do think that Walk the Plank is a better card than people are thinking about. So I think what we look at is we go, oh, it's kind of like Grasp of Darkness, but it's sorcery speed, which would be bad. But the more I look at it, the more I'm like, actually, it's kind of like Murder, but it costs 1 mana less,
And it's sorcery.
and it's sorcery speed.
Yep.
And obviously, Murder was played mostly because it killed Sky Sovereign.
Yeah, I was going to say
It's a big
deal.
Such a
But
big-
Grasp of Darkness didn't kill Sky Sovereign either, so
Yeah.
that's a non-card. But obviously, not killing Glorybringer is a big deal. But I don't think it's gonna be a 4 of Grasp replacement. But I do think it's playable as a card that is just a straight hard answer to a lot of things
yeah.
that it only costs 2 mana. So it's very easy to go up tempo with it.
I guess I'm just reflecting on how particularly bad it is against red.
Well, that's definitely true.
And I think
But
a lot
Black
of it,
does still have access to things like Fatal Push against red.
it's true, but I guess a lot of the decks that want to run Walk the Plank are also decks that aren't very good against red, I think. But
Maybe. I think...
unless I've seen some kind of red black mid range decks and stuff that have been around this past standard that aren't losing too much. Well, I guess they're losing Liliana, which is actually a
They're
huge
losing Liliana, Kalatas, and Grasp of Darkness,
Oh,
which
God,
I think
that's
were the
so
3 best
bad.
cards in the deck. Against
really, really
red.
big. It's
deal.
really big.
Yeah, jeez,
How were you excited about?
dude. Huatley, man. A red-white planeswalker, another one. I'm just getting spoiled. This is great. In fact, I'm gonna be writing an article about Huatley.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, because okay, real talk. I don't know how excited I am about Huatley. I don't know.
I don't think anyone.
And the more I think about
No,
Hawaii, the less excited I get about Hawaii.
She does a lot of things, and I'm not sure how well she does any of them.
Yeah.
I think she's great against red. Which,
this is the conclusion I've reached.
Which to me is okay, that might just be good enough for standard. Probably going forward, first couple weeks, I'm gonna be playing red. I think I really enjoy playing the deck. I don't think it loses a hell of a lot, but overall, Huatley looks like something I might.
I mean,
be
I knew you were going to pick it, and I didn't really know why I asked you the question, but I thought you could tell the rest of the world.
Absolutely. I mean, just imagine. I think they were talking on the game podcast about curving Gideon into Chandra into Huatley. I was like, I don't know how good that is, but I want it.
You want to do it. You
I
want to
mean-
do it.
The problem to me is that that curve sounds great until you say Huatley, and then I'm like, I guess it's okay.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, why am I not bringing the glory?
Glory bringer? Yeah, glory bringer. Why not glory bringer?
So that's also my other thing, is that the more I look at Hartley, the more I compare her to other, like, commonly played 5-mana threats.
Yeah.
And,
Boat
like,
and Glorybringer and Scarab
Glorybringer and
God.
Scarab God, I think she
Even
compares...
Crested Somewhere.
Yeah, or Chris Summer. I think she compares unfavorably against, like, all of them.
Yeah,
That's my
see,
problem.
this is the thing. I think Huatley is just a utility card. I think no matter what, Huatley is kind of a sideboard card unless the format changes in a pretty big way.
Yeah.
But the thing is, she does a lot of things where I think there's some matchups where I would bring her in. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about Huatley overall. I also just want dinosaurs to be good. I'm not gonna lie. I want dinosaurs.
I mean, on dinosaurs, I mean, I'm going to have some pretty boring picks, but they're very reflective of who I am
Don't
as a
like
player.
green mid-range.
I mean, I have a particular affinity for 4-mana 4/5s. So, yeah, we don't drop it around, it does
That
look great.
sounds hard to get more than one off your cost if you've got an affinity for 4-mana 4/5. It's a very niche card type.
I've got
I mean-
3 Siege Riders in play, buddy.
So, I mean, yeah, Ripjaw looks great. We're not going to talk about it because everybody has. Regisaur Alpha, I think the Thragtusk comparisons are like very apt, and I think the card is talking about 5-drops. I definitely think it's in contention. Obviously, as we just said, we have some very powerful 5-drops that are kind of dominating the format already.
Yeah.
I do think
Um,
that currently it will struggle to take slots off of Glorybringer.
Yeah.
Because Glorybringer is so good as an aggressive card and a more controlling card.
Yeah.
So it fits everywhere. Whereas Register Alpha is really like, I'm struggling to see exactly the spots where it is better than Glorybringer.
I think you have to care about the dragon subtype. If you care, sorry, the dinosaur subtype.
Yeah.
If you care about the
I got so
dinosaur
confused.
subtype for your Gishaf or your Savage Stomp or
Yeah.
the 2-mana one that reduces your dinosaurs by
Yeah.
Yeah.
then Regisaur Alpha becomes
Or
definitely-
even with the like those dorky creatures that get pumped by dinosaurs, right? Like Regisaur Alpha on turn 4 is
Yeah, with the dork, because like even with the dork, I mean my biggest issue with the dork is it's 2-mana 1/1 that taps for any color and it gets +2/+2 if
Yeah.
you control a dinosaur.
Castle Huntmaster, I think it's called.
There's also the other one that's kind of like the
There's a
Goblin Servant or the
Yeah,
Dragon Lord Servant.
It's
That-
2-mana
that is-
1.
oh, you're talking about the green one.
Yeah, the green.
Oh,
You were
yeah.
talking about the green one, but there's
Yeah.
also the red one as well.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get
yeah.
these 8 dorks together.
That's the one I was talking about.
Right,
Yeah,
cool.
that-
That's why I thought it
one's
was
a cost reducer, one's a dork.
Right, cool.
And the cost reducer also can give your dinosaurs haste.
Right.
Yeah.
Sweet. Double
There's also
haste.
a white dork 1-drop, which is a 1-mana 0/3 that makes your dinosaurs cost 1 less, which having this many of that effect in a format is kind of interesting.
Yeah, now that I've said so many of these like out loud, like I played with Dragon Lord
I mean,
Servant.
you have to look at how the mana's like to play all these like little early
Yeah,
game plays
That's definitely
before
true.
your
I
mana
do
gets
think that
fixed.
Shard Mana is better. Getting
Yeah.
access to 8 check lands is quite
Mm.
powerful. But
And a fast
I am also like skeptical of what we've just said is like 3 early plays,
Yep.
all of which are a different color.
Mm-hmm.
And even with check lands, I'm not sure it's that good.
I feel
don't
the
know.
white one is a limited card.
I definitely agree.
I could very well be wrong. But
Yeah, I mean, it might be. I mean, I don't know. It depends on the
It depends
sizing.
how scared you are of Magma Spray. I mean, it's
Mhm.
the only one of the 3 we've talked about that doesn't die to Magma Spray.
Yeah, I mean, sizing's important. Like, it's a big reason why a lot of people talk about Ripjaw Raptor because the 5th point of toughness, like
Yeah.
in a world of like Glorybringer.
Glorybringer, Cut, Chandra,
Yeah.
all of the removal is deal 4 damage, except for
Exactly.
Walk the Plank.
Except for Walk the Plank. Also, Walk the Plank doesn't make them draw a card, whereas all these other removal spells.
That's, yeah.
You know, you're
good point.
harness lightning the raptor. Anyway, we're not going to talk about raptor. We said that. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of new cards. I think there's a lot of new potential. So the full spoilers come out today. I'm now really, really excited to brew because prior to this, you know, I kind of just look at cards and I think, oh,
Every
this looks
time,
great.
every time someone brings down a deck before the full spoiler's out, he looks at it and goes, I don't know. I don't know what's happening in this new format yet. Give me the full
Yeah.
spoiler.
Yeah, give me the full spoiler. I'm literally, yeah. I mean, I'm dying for the full spoiler. So I'm really excited to sink my teeth into it. One card we didn't mention, which I think has potential eternal implications, which I've forgotten the name of now.
Charter
Course.
Yeah, is that the 2-mana draw 2?
2 mana
Yeah.
draw 2, and then you discard a card unless you've attacked this turn.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think this
Uh,
will be in a lot of standard decks.
It's a sorcery,
Yep.
but yeah, it'll be in a lot of standard decks. I do really think it has eternal implications. Card looks
I've
fantastic.
seen Delver players talking about it.
Yeah, I'm not one to play
I
very
mean,
many
if
draws.
your format sometimes plays Night's Whisper, it can sometimes play
Yeah,
Charter
of course,
Course.
yeah.
I'm sure as well.
We'll get-
Especially if you are like more heavily blue, which welcome to Legacy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pitches to
and-
force, baby.
Yeah, and decks like Delver
Yeah.
are interested in more spells that
Absolutely.
do different things.
Absolutely. So that's all very exciting. Yeah, I'm gonna get brewing tonight. We've got a whole mini game here. What we're looking to do here is, speaking about this full spoiler coming out today, we're gonna pick one of the one of the cards that wasn't spoiled prior to the full spoiler coming out, and see what we think. As a result, it's mostly limited focused. But yeah, Alex, what's your pick?
So I picked Siren Lookout.
Okay.
It's 2 and a blue for a Siren Pirate creature. It's a common. It's a 1/2 with flying, so it's a Stormcrow. But what are you paying a whole extra mana for? You're paying a whole extra mana for that pirate type, and when it enters the battlefield, it explores. So explore is a keyword mechanic for the new set, and it says reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it into your hand. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on the exploring creature, so in this case Siren Lookout, and then you can put the card back on top of your library or into your graveyard. So you either get a free mana 1/2 flyer that draws a card, which is acceptable, or you get a free mana 2/3 flyer that scries one, effectively, which is, I think, good. I'm really excited for exploring. This is a sort of mechanic that I really enjoy. Like cycling, it just, particularly for limited, improves the ratio of games to non-games that you have. If you have these cheap creatures that you filter through your deck, get towards lands more often. Once you get later in the game, this one doesn't get rid of your lands, but you draw it anyway, so it still like increases your velocity through your deck and just allows you to play more Magic.
Yeah.
These are the sort of cards that I love.
And these are great limited mechanics.
There's a cycle, there's a whole bunch of them at common. I think they're all going to be like pretty good cards.
Sweet.
For this card in particular, putting the counter on a flying creature as well feels great.
There's a couple of uncommons. There's a Merfolk that might be playable if Merfolk's a deck. It's a 2/1 for standard. It's a 2/1 that explores when it enters the battlefield for 1 in the green. So it's comparable to Silvergill Adept.
I want as many of them in my limited decks as I can possibly get.
Yeah. These cards are the sort of cards I really enjoy playing with, so I'm excited for them.
Cool. Holt, what you got?
I was looking at a card that's called Sheltering Light, actually, and this would be me because I'm a total white player. I'm thinking about it more from the constructed point of view. I look at this card, so it gives indestructible to target creature and then scry 1. And I look at that effect, and it just reminds me of God's Willing back from Theros. And that card actually saw a reasonable amount of standard play. And even when you weren't like playing like blue-white heroic, which obviously like that's a huge benefit, right? Like give my creature protection, I'm gonna swing in for a million bajillion damage. Even outside that archetype, you still saw it in the sideboards because sometimes it's so good to just have like a 1 mana interactive thing that you still get to scry, but you're just protecting a big threat. Like say Glorybringer. Like say we do have this cost reductive whatever.
Yep.
Dude, and we play our Regisaur Alpha instead on turn 5, and they go, haha, Glorybringer, exert, kill your dude, and you just like 1 mana, give it indestructible.
Cracky for 7.
Yeah, and your Glorybringer doesn't untap. It can be huge to like be able to do so much, or like it can be a 1 mana counterspell, and that's the type of white card that I like having constructed.
It reminds me of early on in Kaladesh Standard, people were playing Mardu vehicles a lot, and just red-white vehicles sometimes as well. Specifically, I saw this card in red-white vehicles. People were playing Sky Sovereign, and they realized basically Sky Sovereign just wins the mirror. Whoever is left with a Sky Sovereign at the end of the day is going to win the game. And so, because Sky Sovereign was such a big deal, and most of the best ways to kill it in the Mardu mirrors was unlicensed integration, people were bringing in. They had built to lasts in their sideboards.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember
because it protected your like Sky Sovereign and other like things like Smuggler's Copter, but mostly Sky Sovereign is like this incredibly high impact vehicle, and it gave it indestructible and like kept it alive.
And it totally swings the game if you keep it alive.
And so I remember people playing that. It wasn't a widely played thing. I think I saw it a couple of times, but it was certainly a thing.
Yeah, cool. I feel that.
Nath, what you got?
I had it up in. I had it just now, but I was helping Holt. It's
I'll
called
take it.
like.
Okay.
It's called like As Something Archer.
I could jump in if you.
No, it's cool.
Do you know
I got it. Yeah, I know what it does. It's just called @Zokan Archer.
I mean that. Yeah.
But I like.
Help.
Ari Lax complained about it on Twitter, which is always a sign of an interesting card. It's a 3 mana, so 2 and a green for a 1/4 with reach. And when it enters the battlefield, you may have it fight another target creature, which is like. So the card on the face of it looks super weird, right? Yeah. Why would you play a 3 mana 1/4 that when it ETBs it fights. Most of the creatures that when they ETB they fight are like Somberwald stags, so like a 4/3.
Yeah.
So it can be like, X amount of mana, deal X damage to a creature based on that creature's based on your thing's power. And they don't tend to print this effect that much. A 1/4 is like really weird. It's kind of like a green pinger almost.
Yeah.
So the immediate application that you see for it is that it pumps, or it doesn't pump, but like it triggers your enraged dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Because there are a reasonable number of enraged dinosaurs that have less than 4 power.
Exactly.
Crucially, it doesn't, like a lot of fight cards, it doesn't say a creature you don't control. It says any other creature.
So you can fight your own dinosaurs with it in limited, which I do think is actually kind of interesting. Because also I can see the dinosaur decks being genuinely interested in a 1/4 reach.
Yeah.
Because with Lightning Strike being a big removal spell for the format, in the big like red removal spell, I genuinely think that we're looking at a format where 4 might be the toughness you be to be big. At which point, a 1/4 is a really like big blocker that can block other things, and having reach is a big deal because I've seen lots of low power, low toughness flyers.
Yeah, absolutely. All the pirates.
And so, like Kaladesh Limited, we played 3 mana, 0/3 reach, fabricate 1.
Yeah.
And most of the time, you put the counter on it and you didn't make the server.
Yeah.
Because you have 1/4 reach was such a big deal.
The thing that I like about this card actually as well from a constructed point of view is that against red it's just a reasonable card, right? It's got a big butt, you can't really swing through with any of the small creatures, and it kills a creature when it ETBs.
So this is the other thing I'm interested in about in it. I'm not necessarily interested in it for constructed, but in limited I have seen, looking through the spoiler, there are a reasonable number of X1s that I think people will play. There's a whole cycle of 1 mana, commonly 1/1 creatures, which have like an 8 mana activated ability that sacrifices them to do something big.
I also think that like the post-combat ping is like pretty scary. You know, you've got that kind of thing where they make some swings and they're a bit ambiguous.
Their 2/3 swings into your 2/3, and like you've got like they've played absolute pie in the sky nonsense, but like they've played a 2/3 with enrage, and they swing into your 2/3, and it's really clear that they want you to block because they have this enrage trigger. So you're like, well, if you don't block, then they hit you for damage, and then they play their 1/4 that blocks your 2/3 and will trigger their enrage.
Yeah.
And if you do block, then they'll kill your creature.
Yeah, and trigger their enrage.
Ooh. Yeah, and trigger their enrage. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Guess I'm taking 2.
Yeah, guess I'm taking 2 boys. But like,
yeah, it does a lot.
So it's good in those scenarios, and it's also very, very good when your opponent has an X1 on the field, obviously, as it's like 3 mana, kill your opponent's creature, leave behind a very respectable.
I think that's a really cool pick. I think it's like quite an unobvious one.
It's a really super weird card to look at.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really interesting.
I guess that's why it's interesting. My pick is Glorifier of Dusk, which I believe is 3 white for a vampire, maybe a cleric. I was going to find out. I reckon it's a cleric. That's what my money's on.
It's an uncommon.
It's an uncommon with 2 activated abilities. The first is
It's a 4/4.
It's 4/4.
Yeah, it's a
What did I
4/4.
say?
I mean, you said.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
It's a
5
4/4.
mana, so it's 5 mana 4/4.
5 mana.
Yeah, it's a 5 mana 4/4, 3 white, vampire soldier. Damn.
Soldier.
Damn
it.
Get your class.
Oh, okay.
class
Well, anyway,
specifications
so
right.
the abilities are pay 4 life.
Pay 2
against
life.
2 life.
2 life.
Oh, okay. Right, I've got this totally wrong.
So it's
Pay 2 life to gain flying, or pay 2 life to gain vigilance.
yes.
Yes. So it's like
So you can pay 4 life to give it flying and vigilance,
Maybe that's
or
what
you
I was
can pay
thinking.
4 life to give it vigilance twice.
Whoa! Double vigilance.
Combo.
Anyway, this is reminiscent of Sarah Angel, which is a cool card. I like this because Sarah Angel's obviously just extremely powerful in the formats that it's in, and this is I think it's a really cool way of breaking down its abilities. I think there's quite a lot of life gain from what I can see in the Black White Vampire
one thing
deck.
I find interesting, because this is another card I considered talking about,
Yeah.
is it's an interesting signaler of what they think the vampire archetype wants to be about, which is, so there was a vampire archetype in Battle of the Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch Limited, which cared about life gain.
Yep.
And often, like, the black-white archetypes do care about life gain, where, like, and that was all, whenever you gain life, do X. And it was like, you gain life, and then you also drain your opponent for life, and that kind of stuff, or, like, you put a +1/+1 counter on your things. This is, like, you just gain life, and then it gives you outlets to spend your excess life.
Yeah.
So that when you're at, like, 24 life, and your opponent is at 8, and the board is stalled, you can be like,
Yeah.
okay, give
So-
my thing vigilance and flying.
The Oath of the Gatewatch cared about gaining life as often as you could, one at a time, because you
Yes.
didn't care how much, as long as you were just gaining a life. It was
It was
fine.
like a trigger. You get.
Whereas in this case, I think you're going to care more about gaining larger amounts of life, so you can use these powerful abilities. There's also like a 2 mana 1/1 that gets +2/+7 when it's attacking, and then you can pay for life to make it indestructible.
Yeah. So it's like the world's best chump blocker or a pretty good attacking Devilthorn Fox that threatens to eat your opponent's blockers.
Yeah, and if you're gaining enough life every turn, and it's just indestructible all the time.
Yeah, and there's a few cards that are like gain some life, draw a card. It's really hard to see that at face value, like how valuable that is.
Yeah, there's like 3 mana, gain 4 life, draw a card, which doesn't look hugely playable to me, but could be, if you have the right deck, it actually could be a synergy piece. There's also a rare that is like really reinforcing this archetype, and not one I think, obviously it's not very relevant for limited, but is interesting, where it's a 5 mana, 4/4 Vigilance lifelink, and you can tap it and pay 7 life to destroy a non-land permanent. You can do this on your turn. It's obviously like an insane thing. Like that's a really amazingly powerful, repeatable ability on a creature, but 7 life is also an enormous number, even if you can mollify it by making it effectively 3 because you're gaining 4 off of this. But it's like, that's a really big signal to me of how they want this archetype to be.
My hot take from having read through the card spoiler about 1.5 times is that this format will be very slow, and that these paying life effects will be good because you don't get punished for them. That's my
I think that with a
for the
9
format.
mana, is it 9 mana or is it 8 mana? There's an 8 mana 9/9 in the set.
8 mana, 6 green.
Vanilla
with an
9.
8 mana,
Common.
with an 8 mana 9/9 at common, I do think that they are trying to signal to us that they think
Multiple
this
Stone
format
Rain
is,
effects as well.
Yeah.
There's a red and a
Yeah,
black.
we
like
talked
the
about this.
storyline
that they
effect.
think
I
this
it'll be
format
very
is going
slow.
to be slow, and that you will be able to play these cards. And
So
that might not be true. Amon Cat, everyone was like, Embalm makes me not want to be aggressive because, I trade off with their 3/2 and then they bring it back and I trade off with it again. And what am I doing? And then it turned out that, like, the best card in uncommon in the format was, like, a weird, like, trumpet blast. Vigilance.
So I don't know. I think I'm pretty excited for Ixalan Limited.
I'm excited for Ixalan.
I think
Yeah, it looks really sweet.
Explore is like feels like really good glue to kind of keep.
I'm currently pretty high on Explore being one of my, like, top 5 limited mechanics of all time.
Just already.
I haven't played
looking
it
at
yet.
Looking
I'm
at
very willing to revise my opinion.
It's very close to coiling Oracle ETB on the card, and that is basically my favorite card of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not quite my favorite card of all time, but I am into it.
Okay. So yeah, Ixalan standards. I'm excited. Gonna get brewing, and Ixalan Limited looks like it's gonna be a good set.
Can't wait.
I think we can put a pin in this episode. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Once more, check out Murphy's Vault of murphysvault.com, or if you're in Edinburgh, swing by. Check us out. And otherwise that's goodbye from us at Team Vault. See you later.
Take it easy.
Good games, guys.
See you guys.